나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Adjust my mic a little bit there. We're going to continue with the Gosho we've been reading, but I got an email from one of you. Recently, I asked of you to share with me issues that you're having with your practice, with I don't mean to ask for a biography of your entire life, but I think it's useful for all of us, whatever questions are nagging us in our practice, that we express them and that we talk them out. That is what the Sangha is for. Ultimately, it helps us build our confidence that we are committed to our achieving Buddha in our minds, right? But I did a video a couple months ago on, what was it called? Buddhist Burnout. Some of you may have watched that video. You may remember it. If you haven't, whenever you can, I think it's very relatable. And I addressed an issue that if you practice for any amount of time, over 6 months or so, habits, I wanted to say habits creep in, but the truth of the matter is, if you really analyze the human creature, our behavioral norms, our samsaric identity, which is the one we're most familiar with, right? This is what we're trying with Buddhism to, the tendency is to say escape. You know, when we read about liberation from attachment and all that, I don't think that's quite accurate. I may have said it myself, but since we're on the topic, let me take a little deeper dive into it. And as the title of this video will suggest, how do we get rid of this persistent doubt that's usually in the background, but sometimes becomes forefront and center? And it's vexing because it affects our confidence and our determination in our practice. And so that alone is a concern, right? Whatever your experience of practice, 4 months, 40 years, why is it always there, right? That alone can make you go, why bother, right? Please don't do that. But more to the point is, it's our human nature to want immediate gratification, right? And when we first start practicing, we get it. In pretty short order, if you really dedicate yourself, like, there's something here, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, right? And you see things things in your life just changing, and you know it. You go, wow, this is amazing. And you keep going, and a month, 2 months, 3 months later, you've all but forgotten all those major changes, and you seem to be stuck. Or maybe it's 6 months, or maybe it's a year later. You're thinking, I don't really see anything changing. You've already forgotten everything that's changed in the last year. Yeah, but I'm still me, right? This is a gnawing thing about our human nature. I guess I don't like to do this very often, but I think in videos like this, I'll take a kind of a cursory example of my own life. Not to be autobiographical, like I don't need for you guys to be either, although if that's what you feel you need to be heard, I'm perfectly willing to go through the email. But Tammy emailed me about something that's consistently coming up in her life, and it got me to thinking, I struggle with the same issues. And it's probably a universal thing. And so I thought about it some more, and I thought, well, yeah, we get back to the nitty gritty. We are humans with our senses and our brains, data collectors, and more than data collectors, we're pattern recognizers. We see patterns in everything. And that's kind of how we remember things. Via patterns, this, not that. This belongs with this group of things, and this does not. It belongs in that group of things, and so on and so forth. I'm oversimplifying, but I think it's critical to understand that that's how our brain operates in the world. And it feeds our mind a lot of that information. And so what we do with that information is we tuck it into generalizations. The generalizations about I am, you are, these are, this is the way. And as we practice more and more and open Buddha within that mind, Buddha-ness, isn't attached to all that data and all that categorizing, right? Pattern making. It sees right through that stuff and just look at everything flowing, right? And that's all well and good. And just as a reminder, every time we get in front of our Butsudan and focus on that mandala and dedicate ourselves to opening Buddha, we're free of all of it. It's easy to forget that. It's easy to forget that that which we're hunting for is already happening in that moment. But like I talked about in Buddhist burnout, we actually can get so preoccupied with the world view that we have in samsara that we begin to approach our practice with a distance, less commitment. And we start to, the habit that we create around chanting and reciting every day starts to become one of those patterns. And we start to view it more and more that way. And that shuts us off. That shuts us off from opening Buddha in our minds. And then the practice becomes heavy and difficult. Nothing ever changes, right? And the doubts creep in, and we're working against ourselves. We're letting our attachment world create a barrier between us and our Buddha-ness. All of us experience this. Sometimes more, sometimes a little. Usually, if you just shake your head, figuratively, and focus and really chant, and those are the moments, I've already said this in other videos, there have been times in my practice when I challenged this mandala. Come on! I want it now. I'm sick of this crap. Right? I mean, it's not about the words and but that emotion that I command you to frickin' do something turns into a really profound focus. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying in my own experience, I've had to fight doubt or those nasty habit thoughts head on. I've had to just, come on. Yeah. And it always, however you get to it, whether it's or just a seeking spirit, it says, I'm ready now, right? Namu, that's what that is. Namu is I'm here and I'm ready. Myoho Renge Kyo. I mean, that's what we're doing. So if some days you just have to fight the monkey mind in samsara to get your focus, if that works, then do it. I'm not saying that should be a regular practice. Please, I hope you understand what I'm saying. The anger or the determination or the fight in me isn't about the mandala. It isn't about Buddha-ness or achieving it even. It's about how hard I'm struggling with my monkey mind going, why are you doing that? Look at me. Give me a banana. Taking my attention away, right? Okay. Beyond all that silliness, there's really a strong truth here. And Tammy's letter focused me on one thing that I don't think we really ever talk about. It's complicated. But in a way, it's not complicated at all. It's our human experience. Because as we've collected data, as we get older and older, and we've collected areas of data, what I just call patterns, a lot of us have had very tough times we grew up through. I grew up with a father who wasn't around most of the time, but when he was incredibly sadistic and very, very self-aggrandizing, just really in every measure, not every measure, but 99% measures, just a horrible human being. He browbeat and sometimes physically my mother. Like I said, he wasn't around. And he really, over time, I learned, he just looked at me as some great, not just an imposition, but a competitor, someone who devised to take away his throne, his superiority. And so he was constantly humiliating me publicly, not just personally, and then setting up things that he could browbeat me into doing that were self-harming. And then he would get so much entertainment out of that and laugh at me. So without getting into a whole character study about dear old dad, more to the point is, whatever he is or whoever he is, he's no longer with us. He still exists in me, right? Well, I've talked about the deceased relatives and karmically how we're connected because he's in my DNA. He's part of it. And so my experience of him still lives in my samsaric mind, right? That experience feeds into my filter and my worldview and how I see things and experience things. Now, with over 40 years of practice, I can tell you I've changed a tremendous amount of that. Right? Very early on, while he was alive, I learned how to deal with him through Buddhism in a very different way. But here's the kicker. It's not about him. Right? It's not about him. It's about It's about me, but it's not, I don't want to leave it with that. It's about how I see myself navigating every aspect of my life and the world. Relationships, places where I wouldn't have perceived him being involved. How do I know or experience love, for instance? That's a big thing. And it's quite humbling when you have a failed relationship, when you fall or when you're still in love, but the other person falls out of love and it befuddles you. You don't know, how could that happen? And then you look at your own behavior and go, God, I should have never said those things. I should have never been that way. But you quickly put that aside and go, that's not really me. But the other person sees you with that quanta of information, right? Their data banks are filling up. I mean, we're all like this. We do it, right? Each one of us. We may desperately love someone and they make one mistake that for whatever reason really impacts us. Whether we pile on top of it to impact ourselves or whether they really touch a button that maybe we weren't ready to have explored. And we get over it, or say we get over it. But it's always there, isn't it? Now it could be as simple as, I can't remember, do you like mustard on this or not? And it'll come up like, right? It never goes away. Well, that's our samsaric human mind. That's how it operates. It makes black and white decisions about things and it stores them. So you go on living your life, and slowly with your practice, you start to discover more about your potential to experience, and less of that old baggage hangs around or affects you, or it just doesn't happen anymore. And then one day you're chanting or you're just thinking as you're working on something, and you're as we practice more and more, we tend to have more contemplative moments about how does our life work. We always do this anyway, kind of reevaluating who we think we are. And what'll really bring this about is if you breed, if you have a child, or new relationships, whatever, any kind of environmental stimuli that is sunk its grooves into you, like karmic connections of child. This is one of the very hardships of parenting. If any of you out there have children, you know what I'm talking about. They will mirror something in you that you thought either was long ago experienced and gone, or reevaluations of the same kind of things that when you were a teenager or even younger, that used to just set you off. And here you are an adult and your child presses right on it. It's very unsettling, isn't it? So all of this is to say that you should be mindful not to blame your practice for this. Either way, practice isn't working. Or, I know my practice is working. Maybe you have that confidence, but I guess I'll never change that damn behavior, or those stupid monkeys. They're always going to be louder than everything else. It's very defeating, right? It can make you feel like, I guess I've just got to settle into never resolving those issues. But I want to encourage you, because I've had this experience myself, and I know others who have also. We need to remind ourselves, and maybe we need to do that. The more we practice, we need to reapproach our mandalas, our daimoku, our study, always with the knowledge that you're continually advancing. And that the reality is that there are parts of your personality, who you samsarically present yourself to yourself as, because in truth, we don't know what other people think. We fool ourselves into thinking we're putting this image of self out into the world, and won't I fit in good or look good or be something in the world, when in natural fact, the world is just a reflection of me. And so the image we think we're putting out there is the image that we ourselves are experiencing of us. It's kind of a short circuit. This is the great attachment problem. This is where suffering occurs. So if you notice something about yourself that you feel like it's, what's the word? Non-malleable, that this will never change. Nietzsche talked about this. Immutable karma. That with this self-practice, even immutable karma will change. To recognize it in yourself, it's very hard to do. Because what the one step we don't do when we see something of a pattern in ourselves that's annoying us, that we see is there, we don't appreciate how much it's evolved and changed and influenced with our practice since we were doing that behavior. What you're remembering and now applying to the present is memories. Memories of the way you see yourself, saw yourself, dysfunctional, whatever it was. And you're now tying this current perception as that same old thing. But it isn't. You're just reviewing just some of your karmic garbage, some of your karmic energies. And they're still within you, but now you can evaluate them and see them. And a lot of times that evaluation itself, take that to your practice. It's very humbling. And rededicate yourself to some daimoku. And I promise you, that karma that you're witnessing that's making you a little shaky is exactly what you're now working on. Clearing out. Polishing that mirror, if you will. Which, with that analogy, I need to point out that as you focus yourself on mandala and awaken Namu, your Myoho Rengekyo, your Buddha in your mind, in your experience, that is the untarnished clear mirror. You are experiencing it. The moment you fall away from that and come back into samsara, that's the tarnish. And some corners are going to be really, what's the word? Persistent. But they may also be, just because you're recognizing them, you're making them problematic, they may also have a shiny side. They may actually be facets of your karma that are also useful. And I can go back and look at my relationship with my father and see how what used to be very anger inspiring, I now understand as profound tools in my everyday life. There's a certain amount of fearlessness that sadistic behavior of my father imbued in me. He didn't give it to me. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. It was something I had to develop on my own as a consequence of, a protection of, a development of, that in the rest of my relationships in my life protected me. It's hard to give him credit for that. But it's not about giving him credit. It's about giving me credit. I turned that into some powerful tool. Now, if that powerful tool I'm now perceiving is standing in the way of more deeper, more profound relationships with others, then that's something in me. It's not something from him. And because now I know it's something in me, I can modify it. I can make it a positive tool. Hendoku yaku, change poison into medicine. And so what I come back to in this conversation is that we have this black and white ideology in our samsaric minds. It either is or it ain't. And so if I want to get rid of old habits or bad karma, what is that? Or negative karma, another word we use a lot, it's not possible. We are an amalgam of the energies that move us forward through time. We are momentum. So rather than looking at things as I'll never get rid of that, start looking at things that come up for you to experience, to see, because that's your Buddha-ness doing that. Oh, by the way, take a look over here. Not to remind you of your flaws, but to remind you that, that's my little dog snoring, in case you wondered, to reevaluate and see where that behavior, that thinking, that idea that keeps hanging around, where its positive attributes are. In other words, learning to let go of your angst, your fear, your pain, of the tarnished side of that, and instead look at its positive. What has it provided, albeit not something I like to experience? It has spawned these positive things. Start to convert that gnawing, repetitive, I'll never get rid of this, into, well, goodness, why should I get rid of it? I just need to use it differently. I need to, it gives me power. It doesn't take it away. I just need to redirect my thoughts about it. I need to own it in a positive way. Even if it comes down, how can I use that to make me even more determined and confident to chant to my Gohanzon? Use this mandala in its most powerful way to blow the negativity away from that habit energy and convert it, transmute it, turn it around so that it empowers me in my life. We're never, in Buddhism, we're never getting rid of anything. We're just turning its negativity off and using that same energy, because energy don't know good from bad. Energy don't know positive from negative. Energy is just energy. How we put it to work, karma, that's everything. And so we use every facet of our being to become karmically attached to Buddha in our mind, where attachment isn't an issue anymore. This is earthly desires are enlightenment. We take those feelings of uncertainty, pain, anger, fear, and we transmute them into life-affirming, life-empowering. And from that place, then we chant, I'm here, I'm present, Buddha, Buddha me, right? Let's get Buddha operating in this mind. And with that kind of energy, that kind of dedication, that kind of will, we transcend everything. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Buddha-ness. It will charge your practice. So, whether you let it become an obstacle or a creation of doubt or a springboard to send you even more determinate to instantiate Buddha in your mind, it's up to you. Right? So we all experience this, I know we do, and it's a subject that perhaps I should come back to regularly. Your emails, though, inspire me to say, well, maybe it's time to talk about this again. But Yeah, if chanting and instantiating our Buddha in our minds were a way of eliminating samsara, then we wouldn't be here to experience enlightenment. So yeah, we don't get rid of anything. What we do is align everything in an appropriate perspective, a constantly flowing, changing, fluctuating momentum of energy that we experience. That's why Buddha is an experience of this very same life, albeit from a very empowering point of view, an unencumbered point of view. We become the influencer of our lives rather than being influenced as alive. Remember what I said last time? Life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. For you to do exactly this. Recognize the amazing wonder of it and bask in that amazing, I can't think of a better word, life rather than baggage. Right? Life should be a swimming forward into brilliance rather than hauling along old bags of crud. Because the crud is illusion. Yeah? To say change your mind is hackneyed, but that is what we do with Buddhism. Because our mind is the source of all our suffering and pain. It just means that we need to modify the way we experience our mind. That is Buddha. Yeah? Anyway, it's only a half hour. I just felt it was time I needed to talk about this again. It's deeply personal to all of us. If you have an occasion that you think, yeah, that's all well and good, but you didn't talk about, what about this? Just in the act of composing your email or your note to me, you'll probably answer a lot of your own questions. So, but do that exercise. Many times I need to write things out. I have been in this very spot and recorded entire videos only to put them in a box and never post them. Because I needed to go through the exercise of getting this, whatever it is, out of my gut. I needed to know I was expressing it. And in expressing it, I learned some things. I learned some things about myself and how I might negotiate that kind of ball of energy into something positive. And so I didn't feel the need to expose all of you to it. So it just goes in a maybe some other day box, right? And never to be seen again. We all have our ways of working through our samsaric patterns and angst and so on. But one thing is certain, when you chant, Namu, I am here, present and ready, Myoho Renge Kyo, that's your perfect mirror. Never doubt that it exists. You're chanting to it. Every time you chant, you are seeing it. It's all the rest of the time where we take our little dirt balls and throw them at the mirror. That's why it's important, daily practice, right? Because without it, our muddiness creeps in. That's how we're designed, human beings, right? And the more that we chant and the more that we train our minds to be here, not here, the easier it becomes. And every now and again, we'll find a good heart dirt ball in there that we got to work on for a while. But that's because we're ready to approach that. When it comes up, it can bowl you over, right? Some issue that you suddenly recognize in your life and go, oh my goodness, this has been with me for as far back as I can remember. And we can find things to point at and say, because of that, because of that, because of that. Screw all that. You're just torturing yourself. Yeah, that's where you may remember it where you developed it around this environmental stimuli. But remember, even if you're not Buddhist, your environment is a reflection of you. So the blame game, you're putting barriers in front of yourself. When you catch yourself blaming, understand that you're impeding yourself. So maybe you need to look at that a little bit more softly. Maybe a little bit more self-responding. And in doing that, you'll see where, as negative as something may appear in your mind, it actually produced something positive in you. And your focus will start to shift. Use your mandala for this. Use that Gohanzen portal to your Buddha for this. And it will appear to you. It will happen in your environment, even if intellectually you don't understand it. You will sense it. You will experience it. There's no more powerful karma-busting realizations than that. And don't forget those, because in moments where your confidence is waning, those moments give you great confidence to go back to your practice. Always return to Buddha. Return to Buddha, no matter how difficult it may seem. That's where all the answers are. Converting negative energies into sound insights and positive seems like too little a word. Just a very unfettered experience, right? Liberation. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for listening. Download the audio podcast. Maybe you might need to hear this one in the future, and you can just play it on your MP3 player. I hope I touched something fundamental in all our practices, right? It's something we're not necessarily comfortable talking about, but it's real stuff. So understanding it in a more constructive way keeps us practicing. And that's what this is about, right? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you. Like, subscribe, share this. Somebody else may be having difficulties understanding how their practice works in their life. Maybe this is what they need to hear. Or maybe that other video I talked about earlier, the Buddhist burnout, right? We all have these issues, and talking about it is how we can turn them into less impedance and more freeing, right? Don't forget the website and all the other stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.